side. But you can't boo. No.
Well, that's not fair.
It's what do you love more? Experiencing Israel or shopping?
I love my worship leader and I love my rabbi. I can't split you guys.
That's it. I'm gonna sick my dad on you guys. He's gonna come with his degree and hit you over the head with it.
But you love us.
I love you,
Oh, thank you.
but
That's because
still not a rabbi.
that's because we're your faithful students.
Oh, okay, I'll take that,
Yes,
but
yes.
not a rabbi.
Yes, you are.
Isn't there a... Oh, this is way off topic. Not a doctor. It's a channel in the States that does that. So, not a rabbi.
That's all.
My dad loves anything I do. Yeah. It's because his dad forced him to be a lawyer. So he said, you're going to do whatever you want to do.
Okay, so
Ooh.
I still don't understand.
But that being said, I'm a huge disappointment and failure. I'm kidding.
They're all going to be. Yeah, we're back, right? It's just the so they're walking. So they're close to where we are.
Okay, I'm going to sit now.
To where we are right now.
So,
Okay.
there once was a sect in Qumran. Nothing rhymes with Qumran. Okay, so we never finished that conversation. The two shepherd boys. Not so much boys, but 1947 was the year. November 29th was the date. Shepherd boys go on their search, find that jar that I told you about, bring those scrolls back to their elder, who didn't know what it was, took it to his shoemaking friend who dabbled illegally in antiquities, who knew the value of it, paid them $90. They went through the roof because that's the most money they've ever seen in their life. Took it back to the community, and he took the scrolls to his priest, who then got on a plane. Now, before he gets on a plane, we talked about the minimalist and the maximalist movement, right? Yesterday, right? Remember, City of David? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. You guys don't answer.
We're listening intently.
Listening intently. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward, so for all I know, you guys are asleep. It is after the Dead Sea, after all. But anyway, so when the guy in Bethlehem gets his scrolls, his neighbor is an Armenian Christian, and the Armenian Christian is very good friends with the head of the Hebrew University's Antiquities Authority, Antiquities Department, and he is the head of the Maximalist movement. Okay, so his name is Professor Sukanik. And he gets a phone call from his Armenian friend who says, you have to come to Bethlehem, get on the first bus, and check out what my neighbor just told me he has. So he gets on the bus, goes to Bethlehem, and checks out these scrolls. Now he happens to be the world's leading expert in Second Temple period Hebrew, which is, and that's a big deal because there's lots of evolution. I mean, the Bible is an evolution of the Hebrew language, so his specialty is Second Temple period. That just happens to be when the Qumran community is active in writing all the scrolls. So he sees it, and of course he speaks Hebrew, that's his language, he knows what it says, he's the first person to be able to read it, and he's an expert on the style of writing from Second Temple period. He offers to buy them, and they say, absolutely not, we're not selling to Jews, and then he gives those scrolls to his priest, who then gets on a plane and goes to the United States. Okay? We'll come back to that story once again in a little bit. But I told you guys that the date that these scrolls were found was November 29th, 1947. As these scrolls are coming out of the ground for the first time in 2,000 years, the United Nations is convening in Europe, and they passed Resolution 181 approving the division of the land of Israel for a Jewish state and an Arab state. So for the first time in 2,000 years, as the very same day these scrolls come out of the ground, the Jewish people get a homeland once again. Okay? So it's no mistake that it happens on the exact same day, because one of the scrolls that came out of the ground was the scroll of Isaiah. Not the whole scroll, but a portion of it. And I don't know if you've ever read the scroll of Isaiah before, but this is one of the best deeds to the land, if you will, in the Bible. It consistently talks about God and Israel. Okay? So
Here.
I think it's no mistake, once again the Bedouins on the left, I think it's no mistake that this is one of the scrolls that come out of the ground and one of the scrolls that disappears. Those 3 scrolls are taken to the States, and they are later on reunited with the land of Israel through a long story, but we'll come back to that. So as soon as these Bedouins come back to their tribe with $90, they instantly abandon shepherding and they all become professional spelunkers. And they start going to all the caves in the area. Everybody look left. Look at the sheep on the side of the mountain. And goats.
Oh, wow.
You see what I mean? Those are the paths of righteousness. No, you see no shepherd there, right? At least I can't see right now. They're all over the side, both mountains.
Wow.
You won't see the shepherd. If you want to find the shepherd, he's either on top of the hill or down in the valley. Right now, he's probably in the valley because that's where the shade's at. Smart. But that's why you don't see men walking on them. So this is why King David uses this as an example for paths of righteousness, because no human being should be able to walk on that. But with God, you can. Okay, back to the story. So the shepherds bring us back to their tribe, and they start going out and jumping into all the caves trying to find scrolls. Now, as soon as Professor Sukenik finds out about this and sees the scroll, him and his team start going to all the different places in the Dead Sea area, not just Qumran, to try and find as many of these Dead Sea Scrolls as humanly possible. And the Bedouins start finding out that the Jews are paying for these scrolls, and they said, we'll pay you per piece that you bring to us. And they said, that's a fantastic little money maker right there. Here's 1 scroll, but if you rip it in half, it's 2 scrolls. Then you rip that in half. So they started ripping them up into little pieces. But as soon as they were bringing it to the Hebrew University, they started seeing, wait, these pieces fit together perfectly. It's as if somebody ripped them. And they caught on to it, so they changed the rule. The bigger the piece, the more money you make. The more they pay for it. So they started coming in their, not entirety, but remember, they're fragments. So big fragments are coming. And this is when they started to investigate the different types of scrolls that we found. And like I told you, they found every single book of the Bible except for the book of Nehemiah. They've also found apocryphal scrolls. That's the book that I mentioned earlier, Masada. It's called the Sons of Light versus the Sons of Darkness. Sorry, I mentioned that in Qumran, not Masada. Sons of Light versus the Sons of Darkness. This is their kind of book of Revelation. Follows the same kind of theme. They found cryptic books. Do you guys ever hear of the Copper Scroll? Copper Scroll? It's a scroll literally made out of copper. They found that, but it's in Jordan today. It's in Amman. You have to go there to see it. They found all sorts of extra biblical scrolls and things like this. So this was the biggest hoard of scrolls that they found in the area. Now, I told you that this is the only book that we can look at and say that every single word is accounted for in a modern version, a biblical version, meaning 2,000 years old. Before this find, the oldest copy of the Bible that we had was called the Aleppo Codex. But the Aleppo Codex is also from Israel. It was just smuggled out of Israel into Syria to the town of Aleppo, where there was a very large Jewish community, and then it was smuggled back into Israel. So that was the oldest version of the Bible that we had, and we have some scrolls that predate the Aleppo Codex by about 1,400 years. So if that's the case, you look at the Aleppo Codex, a Bible from New York City, and is there a shepherd on top there too?
Yeah.
And any of the Aleppo Codex, I said that, and then the Dead Sea Scrolls, not one word has changed. So this is pretty cool if you ask me. And you know, I told you guys that once we crossed over that barrier, we're now in this place called the West Bank. And we talked about, you know, who really owns the land, what the deed of the land really is. God put his stamp twice on the land. So the land belongs to God, but it's no mistake that as the world divides this land up and is dictating to us who it belongs to and who it doesn't, that God's deed literally comes out of the land itself. It's spewing out God's will to the nations. And on the very day that this is happening. And today, the world now tells us once again that this is not Israel. But I would like to stand in front of you, and not stand, sit, and say that, I take God at His word. Every word that's in there has not changed in thousands of years, and I don't think it will, because it's God's word.
Amen.
And amen. And it clearly states that this land belongs to Him, and He gives it to Abraham's descendants, which is the Jewish people, for now and forevermore. And it finishes in Genesis chapter 15 that we read. It says, the lands of all these peoples, well, even today, which is the largest it's been, or let's say King David's kingdom, or any kingdom, we've still never been up to those borders. Which means there's more to come to our borders if we take God at His word. And like I said, I do. So one day I'll be fishing on the Euphrates, which is in modern day Syria. You guys are welcome to join me. So that's it for the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it's an unbelievable find, I think. And yeah.
More sheep on the right.
More sheep on the right.
Goats, sorry. One past the right, sorry.
The bus on the right.
I think I got them. Oh, they're blurry. Bummer.
Where
They are
No,
blurry.
Oh, they got wool.
They were back there.
If you want to see something funny, throw a rock at the
Will you
goat.
share?
There's
share
a,
with me the photos?
Has anyone ever
Yeah,
seen on
it's blurry.
YouTube scared goats?
No.
Oh, you guys haven't lived. You gotta, yes, they hop, they freeze, and they fall like they're dead. It's hilarious. Oh, fainting goats.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I saw those on YouTube.
They originated in Tennessee.
Those
Really?
goats?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Why is
Maybe
everything so
alive.
scared in Tennessee?
I don't know. Like possums.
I'm just kidding.
They just fall over and act like they're
I was
dead.
gonna make a terrible volunteer joke, but you guys kill over things like that, so I won't.
I don't care. Probably wouldn't get
I'll let it go.
Let it
Sports,
go?
yeah. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
Heard that?
Let it go, Tom.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm done. I'll put the mic down.
No.
Oh!
I want to see more goats.
Did you get them? No.
I don't think so. More checks.
Sun, I know. Well, I'm going this way, but the sun is too crazy right
Yeah, just to clarify that comment about the United Nations partitioning the land of Israel, even though the United Nations approved this partition, the Jews accepted it the very same day were dancing the Hora in the streets of Tel Aviv. You guys know what the Hora is? The big circular dance that you see Jews do?
now. Oh, okay.
That's called dancing the Hora. Anyway, they were doing all their traditional Israeli dancing in the streets of Tel Aviv, and the Arab nations rejected it and started gearing up for war. So 6 months later, David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, stands up and declares the state of Israel, and the very next day we're invaded by eight nations. Okay, not including almost every single Arab nation in the world was represented in this war against Israel. But only actual 8 nations came against us. They had detachments from different militaries from all around Africa and the Middle East that joined the 8 militaries. Yeah. Which is why it's even a bigger miracle that we're still here today. Okay, so we are now beginning our ascent up to Jerusalem. Once we get into Jerusalem, if it's okay with our fearless leader, I will hop off the bus.
All right.
Because we're driving right by my neighborhood, and it's pointless to go to the hotel with you, just to get on a public bus and come back.
Get home to your family, brother.
Hey, nobody home right now, unfortunately. And I really hope I have.
Get dinner ready. Go get dinner ready.
Yeah, I have to. My wife went to the beach today. Yeah. No, it's okay. She's with her parents, so she's entertaining my in-laws, so the longer they're away from home, I'm just kidding. I love my in-laws. I joke. I was actually friends with my in-laws before I even met my wife.
Wow.
Yeah, because they were friends of my parents. Yeah. We're still friends.
Are
Still
they
my in-laws.
still?
Yeah. My parents don't talk to them, but I'm kidding. I always said my mother-in-law and my mom were playing Puppet Master in the background,
They had a plan.
which they said they weren't. but I'm pretty sure they were. Always beware of your mom. Anyway, so yeah, so I'll jump off. Tomorrow, guys, we're going to leave at 8 a.m. Okay, so wake up call. You guys have been getting your wake up calls, I hope?
Yes.
Okay. 6 a.m. bright and early. We're starting off tomorrow at Yad Vashem, which is our Holocaust Memorial Museum here in Jerusalem. So just be prepared for that. If very, 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 very graphic depictions make you tear up, please bring tissues, things like that. Just be prepared for it. We're also going to be meeting my boss tomorrow, so please be kind. And I know I say Josh is my boss, but this is my real boss.
The one we met at the
No, no.
My boss is a Jewish carpenter.
You're
Yes,
also a Jewish
mine too.
carpenter? Was he a carpenter or was he a mason?
Jewish
Yeah, both. Very good. He's a builder.
Tecton?
He was a tecton. Very good.
There you go.
Record down. So we're going to start at Yad Vashem, and then we're going to go into the Old City and do the Christian Quarter. So modesty is the requirement, and we're going to be doing a lot of walking. I mean a lot of walking, and it's uphill the whole way. It is, and I'm very sorry about that. Whoever put the Via Dolorosa together was not very kind, and he made it uphill. I mean, I guess it wasn't him, it was the way the Romans made Jesus walk, but you know. But they could have at least done it in reverse. So that's the next portion of the afternoon, and from there we'll leave the Old City, get on the bus, and go to the new city, to Friends of Zion. So if you don't want to do the Via Dolorosa, like again, everything is optional, guys. We'll figure something out for you, okay? The first part on the day Yad Vashem is also a lot of walking, but it's flat. Okay? So it's very flat. It's easy to walk, but it is all walking. It'll take you about 2 hours to do Yad Vashem. So you'll be on your feet for 2 hours there walking at your own pace. Then we'll be back to the bus, go to the Old City, and then it's walking uphill. We do have stops along the way on the Via Dolorosa, just so you're aware, and we will be sitting at these stops, but when we continue, it's uphill. And then back to the bus, Friends of Zion Museum, and then our famous split. Who do you love more, me or Josh?
Don't do that. That's horrible.
He's the one that said it.
That's awful.
It's called the
He started
Jewish
it.
Guilt trip.
The what?
The Jewish guilt trip.
Yeah, I hear you.
You guys don't, you haven't been introduced to Jewish guilt yet. I gotta get my mom here to
Get
protect it.
behind
Ouch.